How you doing, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Gary here. As you can tell from the thumbnail and description, this video is about my battery setup, the cables, the fuses, and specifically it's going to be on thermal imaging. So the reason why I have this video in place is because I've purchased and received a thermal imaging camera. I specifically went for the top-down, the TC View. This is the TC001 model. They come in at around about €200 or so, give or take. They do have Android and iOS specific models. I don't really know why, but I do use iPhones for work and my personal phone is also an iPhone. However, I went for the Android model because I also use tablets, and Android tablets specifically, and plus that's going to be a bigger screen. So reason why I've gotten this is because I've had a couple of issues with my battery setup. So the first instance I had, that's been shown in a previous video, I had an inline fuse arc and melt and pop. So that was a bit of a problem. Main reason for that was because, well, I would say a loose connection in the first place, but also because the voltage rating was way too low, and that's why we had a arcing and melting in the first place. Go back and have a look at that video there if you're interested in seeing that. The other thing, I also had a fuse go on me. In fact, it was one of those, it was a 125 amp DC breaker. Now, when I made the connections, I made sure that they were very tight. However, you should come back and check all your connections a few days later, about a week, and then about a month later. Just make sure everything is good. And then periodically, every few months, you should kind of check your connections. Mark them, which is an easier thing to do, and you'll see if there's been any movements in any of the bolts or screws or however else are held in. So I've had two, I suppose, significant enough problems with cabling that I deemed it necessary and worthwhile to go and purchase an IR camera. So I'm going to be going around my battery setup with this camera, and I'll show you what I'm looking at. The top-down comes in a nice little case here. Inside, it's secured here in some foam. You also get this little extension cable, so you can connect it to your phone and your pad, and you can kind of move the camera around independent of the phone or the pad, which is quite useful. Or you can just connect it directly to your USB-C or your Lightning connection, depending on what you have. So kind of like this. As you can see, I already have the top-down connected. Here's me here. This is on a Samsung tab. I think it's like, I don't know, 8 inches or so. And you can see up the top right, well, just beside my head there, that's my routers or my routers. And you can see some more electrical connections there. Just beside my shoulder here, that's my Amazon Alexa Echo. That's not the keyword that sets it off. And over here, that's my dog under the counter here, lying on her bed there. Right, so it's quite interesting using this. I've spotted energy being used or heat being dissipated in places that I wasn't expecting it. So you look at a standard like 3 amp lamp, and you know, it has those little rocker switches, and I saw on that there was heat being generated through the rocker switch where everything else was cold. Like the lamp was turned off, so everything else was cold. It was even cold at the plug, but the switch itself, the rocker switch, was generating heat. I think it was around 20 degrees or something like that. So there was energy being used. Now what we're going to do now is bring this out to the batteries. I do have a load on the batteries at the moment. I've turned on my hot water tank. That uses about 2.5, 3 kilowatts or so. There is some load being generated, or rather some energy being generated from the solar. It's less than a kilowatt now at the moment, I would say. So that should be covering the rest of the base load on the house. So that's been on for a good 40 minutes or so, and you know, there has been load on the batteries, so the cables should be a little warmer. I'm going to have a look at that now. Let's see what we can find. Oh, I almost forgot. Just before I go outside, I did mention earlier that the TC001 is either Android or iOS specific. However, I did order myself a USB-C to Lightning adapter. It should be good for power and for data. So if this works on my iPhone when I receive the adapter, I'll let you know down in the description. So it means you'll be able to use it on your iPhone as well as on your Android devices, and I think that'll be quite useful. Okay, here we are outside. I've just taken the cover off this, so just want to be well, staying away from it. It is live, so I'm gonna keep my appendages away from it. And just at the inverter here. And as you can see, there's a nice draw there. The batteries are pumping out 3.5 kilowatts, and from here 19 amps. All right, so let's see what we can see. Let's go thermal. All right, so that's breaker 1 there, as you can see. And the thermal is picking up. It's less than 15 degrees. I don't think there's any hotter spots around. No. So that draw has been at least 15 minutes anyway, that high draw. I've turned on the oven as well as leaving the immersion on, or the water heater. So that's as hot as they're getting. It's pretty good. And just so you can see here, that's the inverter. And that itself is pushing 31 degrees. And oh, let's have a look here. So this is the fuse that went the last time round. 33, 34 degrees. That's the inline fuse here, as you can see. Cables are nice and warm. That's pretty cool, actually. So, just below 35 degrees. And we're drawing basically the max from the batteries. The inverter won't allow any more than that. It gets up to like 5.2, and it's been at that, as I say, for a good 15 minutes, and that's looking pretty good there. 35 degrees. So I suppose well below dangerous levels. I'm gonna keep an eye on this for a while. As you can see, if it gets any higher than that, I'll let you know in the comments, but that's where we are so far. Okay, so just back to this. Breaker 1. 15 degrees again. Can't see anything really on breaker 2 because the cover is on. But you can see the warm cables in the back here. Pretty cool. So, interesting stuff. I did observe it for another 15 minutes or so, and it didn't even reach 36 degrees Celsius. So it was a solid kind of 35 and a half, went up to 35.8, and it remained there. I'm, of course, speaking about the inline fuse that we were looking at. Now, I also looked at the buzz bars below here as well. I did that off camera, of course, because it was kind of awkward holding the pad and recording with the phone. Bit of a pain in the ass. In fact, it would have been quite convenient if I was able to, record the thermal from the phone. And that's just looking out onto my street. You'll see that house there on the far left. There's very little heat escaping there. And that house was recently fully renovated in the last couple of years. So they obviously went ahead and got some, good insulation, some excellent windows installed there. So they're losing very little heat there. All right, so I think I'll leave it there. I hope you found this interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe, as I said earlier. And you'll see some more content coming down the line. As always, thanks for watching.